So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to our panel of experts and also to our attendees. And those of you who are watching our recording later this afternoon, tomorrow, we don't know when, but it's going to be on YouTube for everyone to watch. And I'm amazed every time that I look at the YouTube page because I see more and more people are really looking at these community chats, and that makes me obviously very happy that this information is actually getting to all of you out there. So my name is Sandra Arevalo. I'm the Director of Community Health and Wellness at Montefiore Nyack Hospital, and I'm very happy to be your host. These community chats, the intention is to bring you information about health, wellness, and resources that you might take advantage of, for your own health, the health of your family, and those who you love and So today we're going to be talking about elderly abuse. Sometimes we don't know, we might know some cases, we might see some things that happen and we don't know how to help. Well, today, that's no longer gonna be the case because after this webinar, we're gonna know how to help. And that's the reason why we have experts here as every Thursday. So today with us, Sarah Kieran, Stephanie Good, and Dana Thissing, and they're gonna tell us a little bit about themselves and what is it that they do and how they got into working with the elderly. And of course, they're gonna have a presentation for us and they're gonna let us know what can we do to help. I mean, who doesn't want to be a hero, right? We all want to be heroes in a way or another, but sometimes we don't know how. So today we're gonna find some tools, and that's very exciting. So Sarah, why don't we start with you and you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so I'm Sarah Kieran. I am one of the EMDT coordinators for the Hudson Valley Hub. So the EMDT is a statewide program that is meant to help to combat elder abuse.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Stephanie Good, and I work for Lifespan. And how I got to working with older adults actually is I actually used to work in the domestic violence field for 5 years, working in emergency hotlines and shelters and court program. And seeing the opportunity to learn about elder abuse, it just seemed like a great place to work. So I switched over to here.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Dana, who helped us put together this panel. I have to give credit to you.
Thank you for having us all. Thank you for having me. My name is Dana Thissing. I work for Rockland County Office for the Aging. I work on the New York Connects program. The New York Connects program is really your information hub when you call Office for the Aging. If you come into the office and you see someone here, it's typically going to be someone on the New York Connects team. So we sort of are a starting point for a lot of people when they don't know where to turn. So we're happy to be a part of the EMDT here in Rockland and to work with Lifespan as well. And just to, bring awareness to the Elder Abuse Awareness Month. We do have an event coming up on the 16th next week in Spring Valley at St. Joseph. So if you'd like to attend something in person that addresses elderly abuse, we're going to be doing a panel. So should be a wonderful wealth of information, as will today. And thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating and organizing with me. I couldn't have done it without you, Sandra.
No, you always do it. I'm just here to be the host. That's it. So just an important reminder that we want questions. I know that if you're attending this webinar is because something is in your mind, and really there is something that you want to ask. So please start with questions. We're going to start with the presentation, and then at the end, we're going to ask all the questions. So don't hesitate. Just start writing everything in the Q&A or the chat box, whatever you feel comfortable writing your questions. I'm going to read the questions to our panelists after the presentation, and we're going to get you all the answers. So, okay, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I will get us started here since I'm on the screen. So yes, again, my name is Stephanie, and specifically what I do at Lifespan, it's a long one. I run what is called the Elder Abuse Helpline for Concerned Persons. So I work with the family, the friends, the neighbors who are witnessing an older adult that they care about facing elder abuse. Sometimes people are calling and they're like, well, I don't know if this is abuse. For example, some people have called, well, I don't know if it's abuse if the person who is perpetrating it is an older adult themselves. Yes, it doesn't matter. They are still can be a victim of elder abuse. Or maybe it's that, oh, well, they're taking care of their finances, their home, they're taking them to their doctor's appointments, but I see them getting really aggressive when it comes to transporting them in and out, and I can see how they yell at them, and there's just something doesn't seem right. Could that be elder abuse? So a lot of times people have questions. They just didn't know who else to call, because most people get referred to us just by typing in Elder Abuse Helpline, Elder Abuse Concerns, and we pop up usually on our Google ads. We actually do cover 53 of the 62 counties, which is a lot, but we are still a newer program. We launched this in September of 2021. So the remaining counties, which is New York City and the 5 boroughs, actually launched this helpline first. So that was in 2017, and it was doing so well, they're like, we need to cover the rest of New York State. So myself and my partner in crime, Betsy and Ferner, took this on. And it's what makes this program great is that these are the people who care. How often do we work with direct victims of elder abuse and we ask, who are your supports? And they're like, I don't really have anybody. Nobody wanted to get involved. They were frustrated or they were scared of this person. So these are the people calling saying, I want to help. I didn't know where to start. Or maybe they've tried A through Z and they're like, I just want to see if there's anything else. So more specifically, what can somebody expect when they call? So one of the things to know is that they would call a 24-hour call center. There we go. That's the phone number. So they would call this number to get a hold of us, and somebody else on the other line, it's not going to be Betsy or myself. They're just going to be asking some basic information of, where is the victim located in New York State? Because that concerned person, which is the family, friend, or neighbor, can live anywhere in the world. As long as the mistreated older adult lives in New York State, we can provide that support. So depending on where they live, they'll be sending to either us at Lifespan or the downstate team and get your callback information. So we can give you a call back within 1 to 2 business days and provide that support. And once we connect with you, we let you know, we are completely confidential. We're not adult protective services. We are working with you and providing the support for you as the witness to this. So we can talk about a variety of things, such as, what are the roles of these systems? Who do you call in these situations? Because it's confusing of who to call. Probably a bunch of us is made calls to a place and they're like, oh, it's not us, try this. Oh, it's not us, try this. Usually I'm like a first stop shop of like, oh, well, they're in the hospital right now. Adult Protective Services doesn't go into hospitals typically. So you want to call the social worker and do this. Or this is the real role of Adult Protective Services. It's not to yell at the abuser or throw people into nursing homes. It's not that at all. They want to work with the older adult and fill in the gaps of safety with services. Let's talk about that. We can talk about how they can safety plan with the person they love. Maybe figuring out your boundaries, because oftentimes we want to throw in the capes and save this person. And, we believe that the older adult can save themselves, whatever that may look like or be. And it can be really heavy witnessing this happen. And oftentimes people witness this go on for years of abuse for the person they care about, and they're feeling hopeless and defeated. And we just get to be that space for them. So that's overall a lot of what we do. We provide the emotional support and counseling for that concerned person. We can explain systems and who to call and resources. We're not adult protective that would go into the home of the older adult or any, we would just be the support for that concerned person. That basically sums it up. Either if people want to have questions now or type it in the chat, or we can save that in the end, but I will pass this along to Sarah.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I'll see if I can get it to There we go. So, as I said, I'm Sarah Kieran. I work with Jewish Family Services of Ulster County, and I'm one of the coordinators for the Hudson Valley Hub EMDT. So I've been with Jewish Family Services almost a year now, since August, and work as the EMDT coordinator and home-based coordinator. I've worked in rehab and nursing homes as director of social work. I've also worked with children and families prior as a therapist and advocate, care management and resources. And personally, I also have two grandmothers who are still with us, a mother-in-law, a disabled brother-in-law, and a host of other people that I also support. So not just as my profession, but in my personal life. And then I am also the domestic chief operating officer in crisis management, which means I'm a wife and a mother. So I take care of my kid and take care of the house on top of everything else. So I am a social worker through and through. So what is the Hudson Valley Hub EMDT? So many people know what a multidisciplinary team is, and that's a team of people from various disciplines, from various different agencies, specialties, organizations that come together for a common cause. Our common cause is elder abuse. Our team is enhanced because we have a couple of really key pieces. We have a forensic accountant that works on each of our teams, a forensic geriatric psychiatrist, and a civil attorney. The Hudson Valley Hub is comprised of 5 counties, Rockland, of course, Orange, Sullivan, Ulster, and Dutchess. So who does the team help? So folks in the county who are age 60 and over and suspected or substantiated abuse has occurred. So it doesn't have to be substantiated. If you are calling Stephanie because you're concerned about a neighbor or a loved one, it is something that can be referred to the team, even if it's only still a suspicion. But of any kind of abuse, physical, psychological, sexual, or financial abuse, including fraud or neglect. So what we do, we assist and support all the different agencies within your community, government, nonprofit, and community, in cases of complex elder abuse. We provide trainings like this and outreach, and we help to link and support the professionals to resources that are available throughout the state. So how do you get help from the EMTT for yourself or for a loved one? So you unfortunately can't contact me directly. However, all the counties have amazing resources, including Rockland County. It's been such a pleasure working with the folks at Office for the Aging, Adult Protective Services, the District Attorney's Office, local law enforcement, victim services, and a host of other agencies. Any of those agencies can bring forth something to the EMDT, a case to the EMDT. And I will not be working directly with that loved one, but I will be working very directly and supporting those agencies in accessing resources, discussing possible supports that they may want to consider. It is a state-funded program. So it's state funded in part by the New York State Office for the Aging, the Department of Office of Victims of Crime, the Office of Victim Services, and Lifespan of Greater Rochester. So there's a lot of funding that goes into it. And that's one of the really key parts with that enhanced bit, is that doesn't come as an extra cost to our counties that are often stretched very thin, and certainly not to the victims or the potential suspected victims. So it's no added cost to have those amazing services of the accountant and the psychiatrist and the attorney. And that's what I have in a nutshell. Yeah. And I can stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Sarah. So I do have a few questions, and thank you for your presentation. It's great to know that we have resources, and hopefully while you have some time, maybe we can put in the chat all those numbers as well, or if you want to put again that slide so that people can write the numbers down, that will be great. And if we could go back to that slide where you had the different types of abuse, you said there is financial abuse, there is psychological abuse, and if we could talk a little bit and describe each one, what it looks like, because sometimes, I feel that we might be feeling that something isn't really right, but we don't know if it is abuse or not, right? So could you give us a few examples of them, like, for example, physical, then psychological, etc.?
So physical is any abuse that is, and Dana, please jump into if you have any insight. But physical abuse is any kind of physical aggression towards the person, laying your hand, having somebody lay their hands on you through pushing, hitting, slapping. Psychological is telling somebody that they're worthless, or wishing they would just die, and why do I have to do this? Sexual is any sexual advancement, whether there's penetration or not, that may be occurring, any kind of a sexual assault that was unwanted and there was no consent towards. Financial is any kind of financial abuse, monies taken without authorization or through coercion. It could be through some sort of fraud or scam on the internet or a phone call, or it could be through a power of attorney, a family member, another local business, anything that takes money that you are not comfortable or authorized or feel wrong about. And neglect is having responsibility for somebody and not going forth with that responsibility. So making sure that the person has food, nutritious food, has access to the food, is able to utilize the food, is living in a safe home, is being cared for hygiene-wise. Medical appointments are being utilized, medication is being filled and administered or overseen appropriately. And I think that's a good overall.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And if I could add to it too,
Please.
so oftentimes it's things I always like to stress with people. When it comes to neglect, there's actually 3 different kinds, which is why oftentimes people struggle whether or not it fits. There's the active neglect, which is they are doing it for power and control reasons. It may be like, oh, if you don't give me $200, then you're not getting your medication. I'm not taking you to your doctor's appointment. Things like that, or they're purposely moving their assistive devices like a walker out of the way so they can't move, things like that for power and control. Then there's passive neglect, where maybe this older adult has a disease, like let's say Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and they don't know enough about the disease to take care of this person. They may not be doing it for, power control reasons. But the person is still being neglected at the end of the day because of lack of education or some other reason. And then there's the self-neglect, where there's not a perpetrator involved, but the older adult is not taking care of themselves and they are suffering medically.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit more about that self-neglect, because I think the other two are a little bit more clear, but it's new to me to hear about self-neglect. So we know that a lot of people towards the end of life, they kind of start suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's, they can't really take care of themselves as much. So is there a fine line between where is it mental health related and when is it self-neglect? Because you might not take a shower because you forgot that you took a shower, that you didn't take a shower, or you just don't want to take a shower because you just want to smell bad. I don't know. How does that work?
The very blurred line. Usually a lot of these things overlap, and even these types of abuse that we talk about, often they overlap. It's usually more than just one. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. And that's where the agencies like Office for the Aging and Adult Protective Services are really kind of the key, and the other, helping agencies out there to go out and to make that assessment. Because whether it's
Mhm.
self-neglect for mental health reasons, self-neglect for dementia, self-neglect because, just physically they can't do it, it's still an issue that would need some level of support, where you may not need to be referred to like an EMDT or like a crisis management. Office for the Aging may be able to offer some supports in Meals on Wheels, or offer some supports in how to get a home health aide to assist in bathing and, daily changing. I know several agencies throughout the state do phone calls, weekly phone calls to say, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? Have you showered this week? Do you have all your food? Do you need any medications refilled? Is there anything that you need help with? And sometimes it's just that little bit of prompting that they need. Dana, I saw you unmute yourself.
Yeah. I just want to say, just to sort of piggyback that when we have touch with clients in any way, whether it's over the phone or they come into the office, or it's something that one of our caseworkers are going out to assess for our services, we are very much taking all of these pieces into consideration. If we see anything physically, I was working with a client a few years back on their Medicare coverage, and the client came in, a few months later after our first correspondence, and I noticed that the client had lost a ton of weight. He had bruising, he had scratches. So those types of things are, maybe outside of the scope of what you came to the office for, but we're always taking a look to see, what the overall circumstance may be. On the New York Connects program, we're just by the nature of design of the program is really just sort of a holistic approach to whatever may be going on in an older adult or a disabled person's life. So, even if someone's not necessarily receiving a service from us, we're always going to look to see where we can refer someone to, and whether it's that they need home delivered meals through our office or a home health aide, or they need someone maybe from Adult Protective to step in because there seems to be something financially maybe not going on that maybe I can't touch on, but I can always make that referral. And then I think just, to bring it full circle, to bring it to the EMDT has just been such a wonderful resource to have everybody sort of sharing their thoughts, sharing on, what their agency can do to support whatever the case may be, has really been a wonderful program so far for everybody, I think.
Mhm. So if one of you wants to, you just said something beautiful, full circle. So let's talk about that circle. Like, I'll make a phone call. What happens after that? What are all those steps? I think, Dana, somehow you touched on that. But if I'm the concerned citizen, what's that full circle? What should my expectation be of what's going to happen? Do you reach out to me again, or I just make a phone call and forget that I even made it? How,
It
what's that
depends on the
process like?
circumstance. I think, if the call is coming into Office for the Aging and someone on the New York Connects program is taking the call, we're doing an intake. We're doing a thorough job of really taking into consideration what the client is calling for, trying to see what their goals are, what, maybe the end result they would like. And I would say that a lot of the programs are really self-directed in that if someone really does not want assistance with something, we cannot force them into a situation. We're also not mandated reporters. So, this becomes a tricky situation where, not everything becomes apparent. I'm not a counselor. I don't have a social work degree. So to me, I'm just sort of going off of gut instincts sometimes, and just these other maybe soft skill sort of things in our conversation that I may pick up on. But when someone makes a call to us and we see that maybe there is some suspected abuse, we will typically refer to Adult Protective Services because they can assign a casework to do more in-depth work. And in addition to that, the concerned persons reporting hotline is definitely something that we provide to clients to make sure that, you know, they feel supported, just like Stephanie, you know, presented beautifully, that they get what they need out of this as well. Just the understanding of like, okay, there's certain things that we can do, certain things that we can't. And sometimes just setting the expectations, you know, like you said, Sandra, is really important so that people understand what our role is and that we can't always force people into things that they don't want. But if there is something, we will raise it to usually Adult Protective Services. Now, once someone has been transferred to Adult Protective Services, if we're the referring party, we will get a notice whether or not that client has been accepted into the Adult Protective Program. If they are accepted into the program, then typically it's something that we will leave to them. You know, sometimes these cases get brought up in the EMDT and we will work holistically across agencies to provide the support. But typically once they're accepted, it's sort of, you know, on their caseload. And we won't do as much casework unless it relates to whatever that initial call was. Like I mentioned Medicare counseling before. So let's say they called regarding Medicare counseling, and then secondary to that was some sort of abuse. You know, we may correspond with them regarding that Medicare piece going forward. If they get turned down for Adult Protective Services and we see that there really is still a need for something, then we will do follow-ups just to make sure that whatever the additional need was is going to be met. And that may be through the use of contracted agencies, it may be through the use of community partnerships, and it may be just, you know, again, bringing it to the EMDT and saying, okay, well, they weren't eligible for Adult Protective, but what else can we do as a community to support this person?
Mhm. And there is the factor of fear a lot, I think, right? Like me, the concerned citizen, is seeing something happening, and then you guys might start your investigation, but then that person, you know, denies everything due to fear. How do you manage that? Like, if and you just said it, sometimes you know that these people really need the help, but they refuse it. So how do you manage?
I feel like it's different depending on the situation as to why people may deny. Some people may deny not really for fear. It's just that it's hard to face that somebody that they care about is doing this to them. And they would rather, it's almost like dealing with the thing you know versus the thing you don't know. Sometimes having this person, let's say they were living together, leave your house is scarier because you don't know the retaliation in comparison to like, oh, well, I can deal with the little outburst here and there. Or they just don't want anything bad to happen to this person because they've been caring for them either financially, emotionally, physically, housing, whatever, and they don't want anything bad to happen to them if they cut off ties in any way. So it often depends. Sometimes it's offering things in layers. For example, I spoke with somebody today. She's concerned about her friend. Her friend is 80 years old, and this 80-year-old friend has always had their adult son in his 50s living with her. And she mentioned that he has outbursts once in a while, but the friend just called her and said, this is the worst it's ever been. I feel like I need to get out of the house. I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. I'm scared. And then she's like, well, maybe I don't want him to leave. Maybe I want to stay in my own house, but I don't know what options there are. So usually a first step I could offer is like, well, as far as an emotional safety plan, let's talk about boundary setting. You know, in column 1, write down what are the common manipulation tactics this son uses on her, like having her write down all the quotes. It may be something like, oh, if you really loved me, you wouldn't question why I needed this, or, you know, whatever they do to try to get to them. And then the next column can be, what are my boundaries in this situation? And then ending it with, what is my action plan? What am I comfortable doing? Maybe it's saying something like, me having money has nothing to do whether or not it's best to give it to you, you know, whatever, or a physical safety plan of like going somewhere, going for a walk, you know, whatever that is. as like a first step for this to keep emotionally safe. Then we can talk about adult protective services and the expectations. And then if it gets so far to the point, let's talk about orders of protection from this person. You can maybe get a refrain from order so you can still talk to them. And if they get worse, you can bump up to the stay away and have them vacate the residence. So it's kind of like an escalation, like let's start here. And if it gets worse, let's do here. And again and again. So it often depends, but that's an example.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes too, adult protective services, not child protective services. They can't go in there and remove somebody. They can't go in there and just, take the person out and put them into foster care to make sure that they're safe. And so working with adults, the adults have every right to say no. So adult protective services may have to close a case because they can't keep it open because the individual does not feel comfortable at this point working with them. But that's where those other agencies like Dana at Office for the Aging and other community agencies are able to kind of start making those connections, start building that trust, start offering those resources, so that, and bringing it to the EMDT to keep talking about, because the goal may eventually hopefully be back to adult protective services to help that individual get to a safe place, make sure that the abuser is no longer able to have access to that person, but they still have the right to say no. And Stephanie is in a great position because confidentiality is so important with everything that we do. So if I'm worried about my grandma who lives in New York and I live in New Jersey, if I call adult protective services, they're not going to be able to discuss that case with me, really. Office for the Aging is going to be very limited on what they say. So being able to have the access to folks like Stephanie who can help me to process it and know how the process goes, or, what I have to do, like maybe I have to get my grandma to sign a release so that I can be a part of that conversation, or have her mention that I am a support for her, that I should be a part of that, is really, really helpful, because these systems, they work great when they work, and they're not super easy to negotiate, especially if you're coming from an emotional trauma, worried, stressed position. Those systems are incredibly frustrating, and they never work as fast as we all want them to work, let alone a loved one wants them to work. So that's another great way that this holistic approach of the EMDT works, is maybe APS can't open up a case at this moment, but Office for the Aging can keep working with them and build that relationship and help them to realize their own self-worth, and realize that it's not appropriate for your son to continue to mooch off of you and, aggressively, verbally or physically blow up at you. And so then eventually, hopefully, Office for the Aging can then again make that referral for adult protective services or some other kind of victim services.
Now, as a concerned citizen, if I call your services, can I remain anonymous, or do I have to identify myself?
You can remain anonymous for us too, as long as when you call that phone number that I also put in the chat too, as long as you provide some way for me to contact you back, it doesn't matter if you want to give me your name or not. You can be very vague, whatever you
Concerned citizen at Gmail. Okay.
Yeah. Whatever you want it to be. I don't give a flying fadoodle what you want to call yourself. I don't know. But that's totally fine, because again, we are a confidential service. It's just, if you need support, you need support in any way, and whatever you're comfortable sharing is, I'll work with what you give me.
Okay. Well,
I would say also, from Office for the Aging standpoint, we can always speak with someone on an anonymous basis. If we're going to share someone's information with another agency, there's always going to be a piece where we need consent. So if it's a situation where the person is not comfortable giving us consent, I will just give people phone numbers to call, say, okay, here's Adult Protective's phone number, here's Meals on Wheels phone number, call them directly, voice whatever your concern is in that regard. But you know, at some points, you know, in order to even enter people into our database, we do have to gain consent ahead of time. So while someone can say, and, you know, I'm not giving you consent to enter my information, that's okay. We may be limited in the scope of how far we can handhold in a situation.
Mhm. Okay.
And in terms of the EMDT, generally we use aliases anyway for privacy matters, and only share the personal information with who needs to know that personal information. And cases can come to us 100% anonymous, where gender pronouns aren't even revealed, or it's somebody who's over the age of 60. They live in Rockland County. That's all we really need. And then the agency can kind of discuss and say, look, we've tried this, and we've tried this. Do you have any other suggestions? Or, you know, hey, financial accountant, we asked for these things and we got them, but they don't really want us to share it. What other things should we ask for? What other things should we be looking for? And how else can we approach it to get that? The geriatric psychiatrist has been phenomenal to say, you know, has the person been evaluated for depression? You know, it sounds like, yes, dementia is a legit diagnosis. However, it doesn't seem that it's that far gone, that far advanced, that the person is unable to make their decisions and knows what's going on. And have you checked these medications? And, you know, all of this stuff, again, that holistic, full approach of, hey, let's try this, and we can talk about, you know, Joe Doe again next month. But that way there's those other supports, and sometimes just processing it out with other agencies and other, you know, like-minded folks is enough to be like, you know what, I didn't think of that, or that's a great idea, or hey, I've already tried that 3 times. But having that open conversation and dialogue is often helpful in and of itself.
Mhm. And for how long do you follow up on a case? Is there a time limit? Is it a number of visits?
For EMDT, it could stay open for as long as, you know, the team decides to keep it open. So if it's something that we just want to continue to follow, even an anonymous case of, let's just keep our eye on this one, we're not really doing too much with it, but we want to not just let it fall to the wayside. And sometimes they're closed really quick because we find a resolution quickly, and the person is in a safe space, and they are financially safe, physically safe and secure, and we don't need to keep it open. However, if it does close and something happens, it doesn't preclude it from ever being opened up again. Stephanie and Dana, I don't know how long you guys keep cases open for.
Honestly, because it's a helpline, majority of the time it's just the one and done. Or if they're asking me out, I'm like, wow, that's a new one, let me look into that for you. Are you comfortable if I talk to my team about this? And then I would give them a call back and let them know what I find out. It's usually just the 1 or 2 times. I've had a handful that just kept checking in with me and letting me know what's going on, the progress that I've made, but now their new concerns, and working off of that. But usually it's just 1 or 2 times.
I would say usually same with Office for the Aging, you know, it just depends on the level of what's going on. It may be a one-off conversation. It may be, it can be opened up. So we do something under the New York Connects program called person-centered counseling. And under person-centered counseling, we do explore options. We do explore someone's goal a lot more in depth than we would just a regular call looking for information and assistance. If there's a client maybe that is receiving other services from our department, it may mean that we're coordinating even within the office on certain things. So we may leave that person open just to sort of make sure that everybody's on the same page. But It really varies. It really depends on the circumstance and what may be going on. And if, if we get that letter back from Adult Protective saying they're not taking the case on, just trying to figure out what else can be done to assist. So it just depends. It really does.
No, thank you. And we're about to end, but we have a couple of minutes left. So what I would like to hear from you is, for everybody out there, what will be your top 2 or 3 signs that we should be looking for to help identify somebody who is abused and, trigger that call?
So I feel like the number one sign is disassociating. So somebody who used to talk to their neighbor daily all of a sudden is never there, or kind of just waves and that's it, but doesn't have that conversation. Or they used to participate in a club or a religious organization and they just stop coming. I think that's like a really big sign of a lot of different things, but definitely a red flag for potential abuse, along with just declining physical abilities, hiding, wearing long sleeves on a hot summer day, losing weight drastically. I think those are some of the biggest ones. Not being able to eat, looking for food. People who were able to go shopping every week, all of a sudden they're losing weight and saying that they just don't have enough money to cover food. So, so that would be mine.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of that, you basically summed it up pretty well. What I was going to say is that changes in behavior. There may be certain things that, from an outside perspective, people may look like, oh, well, that's not the healthiest choice, quote unquote, but that's everybody's opinion. But some people, that's just how they've always lived. However, if this is something new for them, then that's usually a red flag, because it can be different for everybody. I think a big one is, like, let's say somebody's in the doctor's office and any kind of professional office, and you're trying to ask the older adult the questions and they keep turning to that person to answer for them because they feel like they can't speak for themselves, or for whatever reason they may get in trouble or whatever. I think that's a big one.
Dana, do you have any?
It's so hard to say. I mean, definitely we're looking at clients that, sometimes there's food insecurity. So we do definitely look at, someone's weight gain or weight loss and things of that nature. We do get clients that, when they're calling on behalf of a loved one, it becomes very apparent that their wishes and the older adult's wishes are 2 different things. So we try to be very cognizant of what, the actual individual that needs the assistance wants and what their wishes are. And, sometimes it's not aligned with their family members. So, we do definitely get cases like that sometimes, and usually well-meaning, but not always on board with what someone may want for their own choices and wishes.
And to piggyback off of that real quick, Dana, that's a common thing with the Concerned Person Helpline, is that, they see a brighter, whatever future for this person. However, the older adult isn't there yet. And a lot of times it's validating them, like, yeah, if this was my grandfather, like, yeah, I would want this for them too. And it doesn't seem like they're ready for that kind of steps yet. Is there maybe one small change that you can accept in this situation? Maybe it's just getting them connected with a doctor because they haven't been going, whatever that is for you. What's that one small change you can accept? Usually helps.
Well, thank you so much for this information. I think that it's very, very helpful. And, all these signs that you share, the fact that there are resources out there to be helping people, that's huge. And I don't think that a lot of people know about this. So thank you so much for being with us today, Sarah, Stephanie, Dana. and for sharing this. And I know we have more coming on elderly abuse with Dana and other experts. So thank you so much for joining us. And next week, we're going to be talking about synchronization of mind and body for peace and happiness. So you are invited. We're going to have some sort of meditation. Believe it or not, we can do it virtually now, you know. So I'll see you next week. And again, thank you to all of our attendees for being here as well, for helping us expand this information to all of our community. So go out there, tell people about community chats, and, you know, check us out also in YouTube. You just need to Google Community Chats Montefiore Nyack, and you see all these webinars that we have been doing with very helpful information to all of us. So thank you, ladies. It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to meet you, and I will see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.